As we set sail from Miami, I was wondering whether splashing out on what is supposedly the world's most luxurious cruise line for my milestone 100th all-time cruise was not a good move. Things hadn't gone too smoothly, nor been that luxurious up until that point. Welcome aboard, I'm Gary Bembridge. Here's how my cruise went, if I felt it was worth the money, and if I would cruise on Regent Seven Seas ever again. So why did I have my doubts? Well, when I arrived at the airport the day before, even though I had booked an included transfer, no one was waiting at the airport when I came out. Later, me and some other passengers found they were waiting at the wrong place. We were taken to what was supposedly an included luxury hotel, but it was more of a business conference focused hotel, so a bit disappointing. The next morning's transfer to our ship, the Regent Seven Seas Navigator, was late. And when we finally got on board, the cabins weren't ready. So as we set sail, cruising ultra luxury had not yet seemed very elevated for the price. However, I must admit, when I first got into my suite a few hours after boarding, I had seen some very promising signs. It had struck me as cozy, plush and spacious. Though granted it was a little bit old-fashioned, but the Regent Seven Seas Navigator is an older ship. This meant, for example, it did lack some mod cons like USB outlets. And I started to discover signs of the luxurious experience promised. There were premium L'Occitane toiletries, rich plush bedding, and a really top drawer coffee machine in the cabin. I also started to be reminded of just how much is included in this fare. The minibar, for example, it's fully included, and they'd even stocked it with my requested choice caffeine-free Diet Coke, which not many lines have. There was a little note telling me that laundry was also included within my fare. But a telling touch was this chocolate cake waiting for me, congratulating me on my 100th cruise. Now, I hadn't told Regent Seven Seas, but discovered my travel agent had. I also got a call from the hotel director, Norbert, congratulating me. It was this attention to detail and going the little extra step that started to encourage me, and more on that a little bit later, because it was something that I encountered as I met the crew over the coming days. For example, my two cabin stewards, Derlin and Dewa, they were friendly, they were helpful, they were really, really attentive. Now, since the COVID shutdown with the shortage of staff, I haven't really seen crew as well trained and on the ball as these two were. And I experienced this everywhere. There was Jehoma on the pool deck at the Selaway party, who, when I said I didn't drink alcohol, he disappeared for about 10 minutes, but came back with a non-alcoholic wine that he had hunted down. Then every time there was an event, he would actually track me down, find me with a glass of that wine. Even though they don't allocate set tables in the main dining room, the maitre d' marque would put me at the same table or section. So I had the same serving staff, meaning I really got to know Ella and Joel because they always served me. I also started to realize this attention to detail was everywhere as crew quickly got to know me and my likes, and definitely more than on any line I have ever been on. For example, at Coffee Connection, the lovely Yuli, she would make me a decaf coffee without me asking. De Silva at the internet desk, he sorted out connection issues and he kept following up with me. And Simone and the rest of the team at the destination desk, they'd suggest trips and tips spontaneously based on what they saw I enjoyed when I was out and about. It was also a relaxed, friendly and very chatty service, which I especially appreciated traveling solo. That did make a big difference. Now, do I think I was getting more attention versus other guests because of my channel? Now, I actually don't think so. Although definitely a few of the crew that watch my channel were excited to meet me and would probably go even further. Now, I'd booked and paid for this cruise myself, like I always do, like everybody else on the cruise, and I saw that we were all getting the same care, in my opinion. So I'd sit at Coffee Connections and watch De Silva take ages helping people discover things like video calling home for the first time. Yuli also spontaneously was making drinks for guests, whatever their favorite was. The excursion team, I saw them chatting, offering advice to so many people. There was only one key issue I had with the service. People asked me far too often if I was having a good time and if everything was okay. At dinner, I'd be asked around 5 times at least by different people if everything was okay. That probably was a little bit too much. However, with even all that service being so good, I still, of course, felt I needed to be getting more for the price that I paid. There were probably 3 areas where I really saw where my money went, and one where I don't think it was. Let's start by talking about the one thing everyone wants to know about: food. Until now, I've always felt that Cunard Queen's Grill has the best food at sea, but I found the food on Regent Seven Seas Navigator fantastic in every place I went to, giving them a run for their money in my book. They had enormous menus. At breakfast in Compass Rose, the main dining room, I counted about 45 different items, including caviar on some days. At La Veranda, which has a breakfast and lunchtime buffet, there was an enormous spread of incredibly high quality food. And there was also little things that elevated it versus other cruise lines, like the quality of the fruit versus regular cruise lines, for example, I thought was just so much better. Afternoon tea is a big thing on Regent Seven Seas, which pleased me enormously. It's held in the Galileo Lounge and themed every day around something, whether it was cupcakes, cherries, jubilees, brownies, whatever. It was spectacular. The only letdown was the use of tea bags over leaf tea. At dinner, Compass Rose was the main dining room again. There was a vast menu with a page of items available every night and a page of daily specials. It had a spa menu too, which I really appreciated, although it also had great desserts, which I got hijacked by. I also had the choice of a couple of other included restaurants. La Veranda turned into an Italian in the evening called Sette Marie, which was really good. The problem was it was difficult to get into. It opens at about 6 p.m, gets really full really quickly. I was turned away because it was too full once and gave it a miss a few other times because just there was a big line outside. The same was true of Prime 7, which is the steakhouse on board. I managed to have a brilliant meal only once because when I tried to book it again, it was sold out. There was also a massive, by the way, and impressive deck barbecue one evening. Quite the spread, quite the event, and I think that happens on most cruises. There was literally only one dish I was not impressed with across the whole trip, which was mussels and monkfish in Sette Marie on my second visit there. The only other food issue I had, by the way, was the lack of informal dining for dinner. All luxury lines that I've been on seem to be like this. I couldn't get a quick, easy meal in the evening other than room service, which I don't like. All venues were waiter served, multi-course options at night. There was no simple buffet casual option. So I came away from this trip clear that food was where a lot of my money was going. The second area where I could see my premium fare going was on drinks. Of course, it was wasted on me because I don't drink alcohol. So I was effectively paying a big premium, but drinking caffeine-free Diet Coke, Heineken Zero, and of course, J. Homer's non-alcoholic wine. But when I looked at the bar menu, there were 39 cocktails, 3 sparkling wines, 4 white wines, 1 rosé, 5 reds, 16 beers, 10 vodkas, 6 gins, 6 rums, 4 tequilas, 4 ports, 5 coffee liqueurs, just incredible, crazy amount of choice. The other area in which I think my money went a long way was on excursions, as excursions were included in the fare. Now, I expected them to be kind of so-so. However, I was really delighted. There were so many choices and they were always in very small groups. The least amount of excursion choice was 6 in St. Bart's, but usually there were up to 15 options, ranging from walking tours right the way through to adrenaline pumping kind of zip lining. Now, I personally mostly went on catamaran, snorkel and beach tours because I was in the Caribbean and I was escaping cold London. But these catamarans never had more than 17 people on board. The small group excursions, coupled with this huge choice in each port, clearly is where a big chunk of my fare was going. I really appreciated both of those factors. However, I don't think my money was really going on top-notch daily program activities though. It was a little bit light, it was very predictable, it sort of followed the classic cruise routines you have in Holland America, Princess, Celebrity and so on. You know, you've got trivia, deck games, karaoke, enrichment speaker, that kind of stuff. When it came to the production shows, they had spent money on a surprisingly large cast of 12, considering the ship size. They were very talented. However, the shows they had to perform, in my view anyway, were standard cruise fare. They were focused on the 50s and 60s music, way too much for my liking. We had shows like The Brill Factory, celebrating songs from the 50s and 60s. We had a musical show, but again, it was mostly older, dated musicals. They did have a live band, which is very good, which played at deck parties. They played in the shows and in Galileo's lounge. The casino was also pretty big size for the ship, and it was really popular. Overall, I felt it wasn't a particularly exciting or elevated daily program, and I do think it was probably the weaker area. A big plus, by the way, is that on board, I didn't spend a single cent on anything because everything was included. My end of cruise bill was zero. I felt really cared for, I felt well fed, I felt pampered throughout my time, so much so that I am booked on another cruise on Regent Seven Seas, this time Explorer, going around Japan. Although the trip was costly, I felt I can see where my money was going, and for that bucket list trip, therefore, I felt it was worth another splurge. However, to discover more on the pros and cons of Regent Seven Seas, including how it stacks up versus other ultra-luxury lines and compares in total cruise price to premium line suites, watch this video where I start with probably the most controversial thing they do. See you over there.